You really do drive this home, this idea of fatherlessness and the fact that these great society welfare programs actually disincentivize fathers in the household. Bring in Section 8 families, you bring in these types of families, and it actually creates a downward spiral because if there's a disincentive to have a father, but also an incentive to have more children, then it's government money that's coming in with housing and food stamps and everything else that's actually perpetuating a lifestyle.
That's exactly right, Jack. And it really started in the 50s, really, but it really took hold in the 60s when it was institutionalized under Lyndon Johnson's Great Society program. And you're right. And the trick was you could get food stamps, you could get welfare, you could get reduced rents on your housing, you could get Medicaid. The only trick was you had to get the old man out of the house. So in 1965, Daniel Patrick Moynihan writes this incredibly prophetic report on the Negro family, and he says, we're at 25% fatherlessness, and my neighborhood was 0 to 1% fatherlessness, and I'm living a mile away from these neighborhoods, and he says the black expectations now will be high because of the passage of civil rights bills, but the reality on the ground is never going to match expectations because people from fatherless homes simply cannot compete writ large. I mean, there's exceptions. You read about Ben Carson or other people, but there are, in general, as Barack Obama himself even admitted while he was running for office in 2008, the absence of fathers in the home was the greatest problem in the black community. And then he cited the statistics, 10 times more likely to drop out of school, 20 times more likely to end up in prison, et cetera, if you're from a fatherless home. And you knew what happened a few weeks after that, of course, is that Jesse Jackson gets picked up on a hot mic in a Fox News studio. He knew he was being overheard, and he knew at Fox it would be released. And he says, Barack Obama, he talking down to black people. And then he does this with his hand. He goes, I want to cut his nuts out, right? And Barack Obama got the message and never talked about fatherlessness again in any meaningful way. And it's a shame, Jack, because he's a good father. He's setting a national example. He was the one guy who had a chance to reverse this trend. And instead, he did just the opposite.
Barack Obama could have actually come forward. He did give the speech. He could have come forward and said this. He comes out every once in a while, and I've noticed we'll say something about, we got to get the community together. Community needs to reintroduce standards. And then he always kind of runs away from it. He just completely runs away from it. And then during his entire 8 years, while he had the bully pulpit in the White House, he didn't do anything to address this. He didn't do anything to talk about this, and instead spends the last few years doing everything he possibly can to unleash the energies to reignite the racial tensions within the United States that led to Black Lives Matter, that led to the George Floyd riots, that led to all sorts of burning down our cities in 2020. A lot of those energies were released through Black Lives Matter, through particularly the second half of Barack Obama's term in office. So his second term after 2012, after Ferguson, after the George Floyd riots, or excuse me, the Baltimore riots, Freddie Gray riots, which I actually were one of the first things that I covered live on Twitter.